It's January 12th, 2021 at about 1:05. I think we have all members on but one right now, and she will join us as soon as she's able to log into her computer. Oh, there she is. She's coming on. The first thing I would like to do is kind of go around and have everybody introduce themselves. So I'm Senator Rich Draheim. I represent most of the Seward County, part of Scott, and part of Rice County. I'm very passionate about housing and have been pushing it for the last 4 years. So I'm excited to have our own standalone committee and the members that are on it. I couldn't ask for a better group. So thank you all for choosing to be on this committee. For those of you who got to choose, I guess. But I guess I'd like to start out with the vice chair. Senator Duckworth, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. Very excited to be participating in this committee. My background is within the real estate world. I'm a licensed real estate agent and also have a few different real estate brokerages. But I'm also very interested, obviously, in housing and policy for many reasons above and beyond that as well. Most importantly, what is the American dream, the right of home ownership. So I look forward to working with all of you so that we can help folks all across Minnesota do exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. Senator Dziedzic, do you want to go next?
Everybody, good to see you. I'm excited to be on this committee. I have been on the Housing Committee since, in some form or other, since I started in the legislature back in 2012. I represent a portion of Minneapolis. I say the east side of Minneapolis. So I have Northeast, Southeast, Cedar Riverside, and Seward. It's where the U of M Minneapolis campus is, Augsburg College. So a lot of college students, a lot of immigrants, and a lot of seniors. So housing is important. I think it is I would say the foundation for us to have a stable life. If you don't have stable housing, it just impacts everything else you do. So look forward to working with all of you on this committee to help find stable housing and, hopefully home ownership for those that want it across the state. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Senator Dames.
This is Gary Dames. I serve Senate District 16, which is southwestern Minnesota, which I serve Brown County, Redwood County, Lyon County, Yellow Medicine, Lacoparo, and part of Renville County. And I've served on the Housing Policy Committee 2 terms previously.
Thank you. Senator Port.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am Senator Lindsay Port. This is my first term. I represent the cities of Burnsville, Savage, and Northwest Lakeville. I'm really excited to be on this committee, particularly as we're starting to come out of the pandemic and really feeling the housing crisis that has sort of been exacerbated over this last year. I'm really excited to work with you all to make sure Minnesotans have safe, affordable places to live. Thanks.
Thank you. Senator Rest.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be back on a housing committee. I served on the housing committee in the House when I was a member there. And in the Senate, just elected to my 7th term. My district is 1st, 2nd, and 3rd tier suburbs of Minneapolis. And I'm particularly interested in the relationships between housing policy and tax policy. Like things like the homestead credit, the property tax refund program for both homeowners and renters. I was the author a number of years ago of the 4D program for low-income housing, and still working on. We did a major review in 2013, and looking to continue that work with developers and landlords. I've met with all my cities about their housing policies, and they are very deeply interested in the work of this committee. So it's a pleasure to be here, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your welcome.
Thank you. And last but not least, our finance chair, Senator Rosen.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Nothing like a little technical problems to make you humble, huh?
Yeah.
But
We've all had them.
I am very grateful to be on the Housing Committee with you all. I think we can do some great things. I am starting my 18th year, believe it or not, in the Senate. And I'm honored to serve a deep rural district, District 23. It's about, it's about 6.5 counties, a little bit of Le Sueur, all of Blue Earth County, except the town of Mankato, Watonwan County, half of Jackson, Martin, Faribault, all of Waseca County, except the town of Waseca. And there's nothing more important. Affordable housing is part of the three-legged stool. You know, that's affordable health care, a good livable job, and affordable housing is very crucial. So we've heard from Senator Disick and stable housing, affordable housing. There's a lot of issues that get rolled into this. So I'm looking forward to this committee. And I chair the Finance Committee, so it's a good segue.
Thank you. Next, start with the staff committee administrator, Joel Hanson.
Hi, my name is Joel Hanson. This is my second year serving as committee administrator covering housing. I was the committee administrator for the previous Agriculture, Rural Development, and Housing Committee. So excited to work in the standalone committee. I also work with Senator Draheim on his home ownership affordability and availability committee previously. So glad to work with Senator Draheim again and get to work with some old faces and some new faces here. So thank you.
Thank you. Tom, do you want to go next? Tom must be tied up. We'll go on to the partisan research. Andy, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Senator. My name is Andy Larson. I am the Republican researcher for this committee, and this will be my 5th session covering housing. So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
Okay. And I'm not sure if the DFL researcher is on the call. I didn't.
Yeah, it's Senator Draheim.
Okay, there you are.
Yep. My name is Craig Janicich. I work in DFL research and have been in research for about 8 years. So.
Well, glad to have you. Thank you. And then next we have the Senate Council.
Hello, everyone. This is Chris Stang. I am new to this housing assignment. I'm a long-time counselor to the Commerce Committee, which Senator Dames currently chairs. So I'm look forward to working with you all and learning about housing myself.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have the fiscal analyst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Miller. I'm the fiscal analyst for this committee. I was also doing the fiscal analyst when the housing was combined with agriculture over the last few years. So now that's standalone committee, I'll be staffing this committee as it stands now. Thanks.
Thank you. And I don't know if Mr. Stang and Mr. Mueller want to kind of go over the jurisdictions a little bit as we know it as today. I don't think we've had the full.
Senator Draheim, I didn't interrupt, but Tom's back on the line here. If you have time to introduce himself.
Yeah, Tom, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Hi, sorry, I got kicked off there. I'm Tom. I'm Senator Draheim's legislative assistant, so I'll be the committee legislative assistant for the Housing Committee as well. This will be my 3rd session with Senator Draheim. I'm excited for this new assignment.
Thanks, Tom. So going back to Mr. Mueller or Mr. Stang, did you want to give a quick overview of that?
Mr. Chairman, sure. I'll give it a quick shot. As you mentioned, the first thing to note is that as of now, Senate committee jurisdictions have not been finalized. So we're kind of winging it a little bit here. I'm told that the working assumption we're under now is the Housing Committee jurisdiction will look quite a bit like what the Agriculture Committee had under their jurisdiction last session. So if you go to that and sort of pull out the housing elements of that, there's not a lot to say. I mean, the jurisdiction said last year that the Ag Committee has jurisdiction over all bills relating to housing, so that's quite broad. It probably should be noted that there are other committees of the Senate who traditionally have jurisdiction over elements that relate to housing as well. For example, Judiciary has primary over landlord-tenant, or has. I believe the last year's Jobs Committee had jurisdiction over construction and building codes, for example. So that's probably worth noting. But as stated, all bills related to housing is quite a broad statement. In terms of the agencies we oversee, the Housing Finance Agency would be the main one, if not the only one there. The confirmations Housing Committee has responsibility for would be the commissioner of the Housing Finance Agency, and also the members of the board of that organization. I think there's 6 of those. And the laws mentioned in the Ag Committee jurisdiction list last year, which relate to housing, they listed manufactured housing, rent control, and transitional housing in last year's document. So I would assume those would transfer over to us as well. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. As I said, I don't think this has completely been finalized, so we'll have to keep an eye on it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stang. Mr. Mueller, did you have anything to add to that?
Mr. Chairman and members, not to that part. I'll just say on the budget side of things, our sole line item is just the Housing Finance Agency, and their general fund budget is about $57.8 million per year from the general fund. There's, as we'll find out in this committee, there's also other financing mechanisms that we'll be dealing with within Housing Finance Agency. But as far as the operating budget and portion of the general fund, it's about $57.8 million per year. And that's the only budget item for us.
Thank you. And I guess I just wanted that quick overview, and I kind of sent out an email, and I know it's hard to see here, or they posted this with our committee minutes. This is a spreadsheet that we worked on Governor Dayton's task force for housing. And it just kind of illustrates, I like it because it illustrates so many different aspects of where housing touches. And by my count, I think there's a half a dozen committees that housing bills go to on a normal basis. And yes,
I can share my screen here and put that
perfect.
Here. So let me do that here quickly.
Thank you, Joel. So while he's doing that, I guess my whole point of showing you this piece from our work a couple of years ago is to illustrate how broad housing is. And there's no way we have time to really dig into all these different aspects of housing. So I had sent out an email earlier to the members of this committee asking what you wanted to get out of the committee and what areas you'd really like to look at a little bit. So if you haven't got back to me, please do. And I would ask that the commissioner and the assistant commissioner, if they're listening right now, if they have priorities they want us to work with them on, it'd be nice to know that here in the next couple of weeks, so we can fill that in on our committee hearing schedule and work together on trying to better Minnesota and their housing. So I won't get into any more details. We could go on all day about what priorities we have, but we do have a full agenda. So I would like to go to Commissioner Ho if she's available.
Here I am, Chairman Draheim. It's good to see you. It's good to have this committee established in the Senate. I was teasing Commissioner Peterson. I'm not going to learn as much about chronic wasting disease as I did the last couple of years, but I really think that housing is such an important issue. Having it have its own committee is fantastic. So I look forward to working with all of you on this. And again, welcome to my home. I don't know what the best way is to get one-on-one time with each of you, but would certainly enjoy sitting down and just talking more one-on-one when there's an opportunity to do that. So thank you for having me here today.
Thanks for being here.
Joel told us about 30 minutes. Does that sound about right?
Joel's in charge.
And happy to take questions as I go or to take them at the end, however you want. I've just tried to make this really kind of a preliminary top line overview of the organization. So let me just start by formally saying I'm Jennifer Ho. I'm the commissioner at Minnesota Housing. Last Friday was my 2-year anniversary, so I'm going into year 3 with the agency. I was with the House this morning. I was joking that the first year was amazing and the last year was hard. And I hope that this year is some combination of hard and amazing. I'm here today with Ryan Baumtrog. He's my Assistant Commissioner for Policy and Community Development, and Dan Kitzberger, my Legislative Director. I just start with the mission of Minnesota Housing. You know, I think really understanding that housing is the foundation for success. You know, it's hard to imagine, as I think Senator Rosen was saying, you know, it's just instrumental to so many things that happen in our lives. We collaborate with for-profits, nonprofits, people across the state with the kind of continuum of tools that we have to preserve and to create new housing, housing that's affordable. I like to say that we all want housing that's affordable, but since we all make different amounts of money, we can't all afford the same thing. I don't think anybody wants unaffordable housing. So I think, you know, it's a goal, a universal goal. Next slide, please. I don't remember if Joel or Dan is controlling the deck, but thank you. You know, back when I was able to travel all across the state, there was no part of the state that I went to where people felt like they were good on housing, that they had enough, that it was in good shape, that it was kind of available to people at all incomes, all ages, and all abilities. You know, obviously, we all need a home. And as I was saying, you know, we know the impact between a stable home and a stable job, kids being able to go to the same school over time, and now with COVID-19, that the home has become a part of the strategy just for staying healthy. We are slightly different than some other agencies. Next slide, please. So we were established in 1971 by the legislature. I do have a 7-member board. The state auditor is 1 person, and the other 6 members are appointed by the governor. Many of my board members have served across governors, and it's good because housing finance is fairly complex. So having board members who have tenure on my board is great. The legislative statute that creates me makes sure that there's geographic diversity in my board, so that we make sure that we have folks from multiple parts of the state. We issue bonds, so we have an annual independent financial audit from an outside auditor. We get ratings by Moody's and Standard & Poor's. Because I think the easiest way, it's not probably technically correct from the definitions of commerce, but I think of us as the state's housing bank. There's one in every state. New York has 2 because it's New York. The District of Columbia, Puerto Rico. But it allows us to access federal financing tools in order to finance everything from home ownership, home rehab, to the creation and preservation of multifamily and single family homes. And because these financial tools are interest bearing, we make money, which allows us to cover our own operating costs. So no state appropriations are used for agency operating costs. And a lot of the earnings that we make, for example, when people pay back their mortgages, gets plowed back into programs in order to support more. So our state appropriations of 115 million a biennium are about 7 to 10% of the total amount of dollars that we move through the agency over the course of any given year. I will say, I think they're the best part of our budget because they allow us to really do some targeted work, some things that some of my peers around the country don't have state appropriations and aren't as involved in some of the things that we at Minnesota Housing are able to do. I know that there'll be other opportunities to be able to do kind of the line item review of the budget. So I didn't really want to take time to do that today because I understand Chairman Draheim and members of the committee that you're interested in getting up to speed on where we are with the COVID-19 housing assistance program. For folks who were on the Agriculture, Rural Development and Housing Committee last year, you'll remember that we almost got there with the legislature using some of the Coronavirus Relief Fund stimulus dollars to create this program. When we weren't able to get it done together in May, the governor moved forward authorizing money for the program. But you know, the main goals that we were talking about, last spring, in the same spirit with which we put the program together, that the goal is to really help Minnesotans keep their housing during the public health emergency and the economic fallout, and to prevent eviction and homelessness during a period of time where the homelessness system is completely strained, and just to help people stay home. We've always viewed housing assistance as a win-win for the renter and the landlord, for a homeowner and their financial institution. It's just been it's been fairly extraordinary to put the program in place. It was designed to pay for past due housing related bills. Next slide, please. So $100 million was made available. The agency contracted with 52 local administrators around the state who actually help people navigate the paperwork and the processing of requests. We got the program up on August 24th, which I think was kind of breaking all government land speed records in terms of the ability to stand up something that big. And just as a point of comparison, our biennial appropriation is 115 million. This was 100 million with about 4 months to deploy it. So an extraordinary effort compared to what I'd call business as usual. The federal coronavirus relief funds initially came with a December 30th, 2020 deadline. We made the decision to stop taking applications for the program on December 7th because we weren't certain at that time whether or not Congress and the president would extend the deadline on that program. We did a big push to let people know that the program was closing and really got an enormous number of applications the last week. I think maybe even $35 million worth of requests. And so we had applications to match the $100 million that was set aside for the program. It's still, we're still processing claims. And now that Congress has extended the deadline, it means that the local grant administrators can get paid to process those claims, something that was of high importance to us to attend to. We've dispersed 80 million of the 100 million, but like I said, we'll continue to take applications. It was almost 50-50, about 53% of the applications that came in were from the metropolitan area and about 47% from greater Minnesota. That's a November 30th number. I'm sure we can find an updated number for you as it was kind of a dust settling after that first week of December when there was such a push to get more applications in. Slide 8, please. So inside the agency, we really tried to take to heart the conversation that we had with the legislature during the regular session about what was important to you in terms of the design of the program. I think a couple of things that I'd highlight on that front were that the program was available for people up to 300% of the federal poverty level, which is where we had been talking when we were in session last May. And checks get cut directly to the entity to whom the payments due. So you're a tenant, you apply, but the check got cut to your landlord past due. You're a tenant and you apply because you're behind on your utilities, but the check gets cut to the utility company. And I know that was something that was important here. Really pleased with our partners at United Way 211 and at Housing Link. They helped us create a simple centralized intake that had multiple ways to get to it. And I'll say more about that later, but basically you could call, text, or go online and answer just a few quick questions to find out whether or not you were eligible. And then you got moved over to one of the local administrators, and they're the ones who actually helped you, get the right paperwork in and get things processed. But for folks that didn't have the internet, you also could get a hard copy. You could mail in a copy. You could drop off a copy of your paperwork. So we really tried to make sure that it was widely, broadly, and differently available to different households so that we could reach folks with different accessibility. There was no cap on the amount of assistance, largely because we knew that some folks might be behind going all the way back to March. I think one of the early things we learned is that people had figured out how to get by, maybe with help from the first federal stimulus check and the $600 a week unemployment insurance bump up that went through July. So the requests actually were much more modest. I mean, some of them were large, but I think the average request was, maybe around $1,400, $1,500. So, and a mix of different things. We made the application available in other languages, although I think there's more work that as an agency we could do there. Again, I mentioned that the payments were made directly to the entity and really tried to make sure that we had an effort that got to households who had been most hit by COVID. I'll tell you, in conversations with our local administrators who were on the phone with families across the state, these families are hurting. And the stress of, unpaid bills and not knowing when they were going to be able to get back square again, those stresses were just weighing really heavily on families all across the state. And for folks that were eligible for assistance, the relief also was extraordinary when they found out that they were in fact eligible. We made the program available to both renters and to homeowners, but because there were some federal protections for homeowners that had federally backed mortgages, we asked, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Commissioner or Senator Rest has had her hand up for a while and been waiting for a good time to interrupt. But Senator Rest, did you have a quick question?
Yes, I do. And it goes back to page 7, slides number 7, about the statement about the applications, 53 from the Metro and 47 from Greater Minnesota. And I was wondering, what value number do you attach to the 53%? Was 53% of the dollars attached to the applications also Metro, or was that 53% were the applications, but there was more money going into the Metro? There are obviously very different statistics about rents paid and how much the rents are as opposed to that differ in Metro versus Greater Minnesota. And I'm just curious where the money went, not just the number or percentage of applications. And if you don't have that information, if you could just get it to me later, that would be great. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for interrupting her presentation.
Thank you, Senator Rest. Great question. I wrote down the same thing. Commissioner, do you have time to answer that right now?
Absolutely, Chairman Draheim and Senator Rest. Thank you for the question. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to get used to multitasking between screens, my notes, the presentation, and making eye contact. So I still haven't picked up on the hand raise part of it. So please interrupt me at any time if I'm not catching that. So first of all, the applications, this was actual applications made. So a household making an application to the program. So that's the percentage split there. It's not the money. Secondly, we're still processing the claims that had come in by December 7th. So we're not to the end of the line.
So you don't know what the split is on the dollar amounts at this point?
Chairman Draheim, Senator Rest, that's correct. But we will when the program has fully run its course, and we would be happy to do a more detailed accounting when we have that data.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, that's good enough for me right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Chairman Draheim, one of the things that we're really pleased about is that by building the centralized intake, we actually were able in pretty real time to be able to watch things come in. The reconciliation, the front intake wasn't intended to be a to the penny reconciliation. So it's going to take a while after things are processed for us to kind of get to the penny on that. But we'll have all that data when it's done. And I think would be happy to share that or bring in my research director to do a deep dive on the data if that would be helpful. Shall we return to slide?
Commissioner, I think Senator Dames has a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner. I have a couple of questions. On page 7, it talks about 80 million has been dispersed to local administrators. Can you tell me what percent of that actually went to the applicants and what percent was used for administration of that 80 million?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Chairman Draheim and Senator Doms, again, I won't be able to tell you until we're done with the administrators processing all the claims. The contracts that we had with local administrators had an administrative cap of 15%. I believe that collectively they were running just below that. I will say there's nothing harder than standing up a huge program in a short period of time that's temporary. Right? Because you're not staffing up for the long haul, you're staffing up for a push. I actually think the Department of Treasury had guidance that did not allow indirect costs for administration of this program, which was also a burden for the organizations that were willing to stand up and do this on such short notice. But we will have all those numbers in the end, but we did cap administration at 15%.
And then a follow-up question. Do you know what percent of those funds that you've already distributed were distributed to homeowners for assistance and what percent was distributed on behalf of renters for assistance? And if not, could you give me those numbers?
Chairman Draheim and Senator Doms, yes, but again, we're not going to have final reconciliation on these numbers until all the claims have been gone through. I could tell you on applicants, what percent of applicants were homeowners versus what percent of applicants were renters. There were more renters than homeowners. And I've got a slide coming up in a little bit that tells you a little bit more about who applied. But in terms of final reconciliation, it's going to take a couple more months before we get there. I would just pray for your patience, just remembering that the program only got stood up on August 24th, and we didn't know until last Monday how the federal government, or 2 Mondays ago, how the federal government was going to treat the December 30th deadline. So that extension, has helped a lot because it's allowing us to pay administrators to continue to process the grants now into 2021 until we can get through the whole queue.
Yes, if you could just put down a note that when you get those numbers, get them to the committee chair or the committee administrator, I would appreciate it. Thank you for answering the questions.
Yeah, Chairman Draheim and Senator Doms and members of the committee, when we have the final reconciliation, I would love the opportunity to come back to the committee and just do a thorough presentation of the numbers and what we learned and who we reached and all of that. So we will let you know when we've got have those numbers done. I think I'm on slide 9. I think the point I wanted to make is that we designed the program for both renters and homeowners. But homeowners with federally backed mortgages, think Fannie or Freddie, could get forbearance, which means that they could apply to not have to pay their mortgages for up to a whole year without being considered delinquent or behind. And so we asked people who had other federal options for not being behind to execute those options. So we would expect that a disproportionate amount of the final money would end up going to renters, because homeowners did have that other option available to them. So just a quick rundown of the timeline. March 27th, Federal CARES Act. We heard from the governor on July 14th that he was wanting to send $100 million. So we launched an RFP. We got the authorization through the legislature, the Legislative Audit Committee? I don't know all your acronyms. The authorization to move the program forward on July 27th. We actually launched it on August 24th and ran it through December 7th. It wasn't till December 27th that the timing on the Coronavirus Relief Fund was extended by Congress and the President, which has allowed us in January and probably into February to continue to process all of the claims that came in the last 7 days of the program. So this has been a bit of a whirlwind. Eligibility criteria, slide 10, please. It was pretty basic. A Minnesota resident with a household income at or below 300% of federal poverty guidelines, with a priority for those at 200% of federal poverty and below. That you have to have one of these types of housing-related expenses past due and incurred on or after March 1st. And that you're unable to make the payment because of the public health emergency, unemployment, illness, or other COVID-19 related issue, which I think are many of the things that we have been talking about together back in May. In terms of eligible expenses, rent, mortgage, including your homeowner's insurance, homeowners association dues, manufactured home payments and lot rents, utilities. I think a few weeks into the program, we added garbage. It hadn't originally been on our list. And making sure that we were paying for folks that used oil to heat their homes and any other housing related cost. And then slide 12 is just a little graphic of kind of how the intake happened. You could call 211. I think we actually took that slide out of our version of the deck because I didn't want people to think it was still open. So hop ahead one more slide for me, because the program is closed. You call 211. You could text Minnesota Rent, Minnesota Home to 898-211, or you could go to the website. You would go through these 4 screening questions around those 4 basic eligibility criteria. It either told you that you weren't eligible, but you could also connect back to 211 because that's the type of work that they do all the time. And if you're eligible, then you selected an administrator and you were given a link to complete a full application. And then the local administrator took you kind of from there down through the rest of the program. So for something that we did so fast, I think central intake with multiple ways of getting in was probably one of the smartest things that we did. And I just have so much gratitude. We had some foundations kick in to help with some of the infrastructure costs for getting this built out at the very beginning. And just really grateful to our friends at 211 for all the temporary staffing. When we went for that big push at the beginning of December, They ramped up staffing. They really handled call volumes. They had low drop rates. Just really handled that part of the process really, really well. And also grateful to the administrators. Yep.
Real quick, Senator Rosen has her hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Ho. So the question, the 4 pre-screening eligible questions, who developed them and what are they? What were the questions?
If we go back to slide 10, it really got to these 4 points. I don't know, Dan and Ryan, if the website got pulled down when it stopped being active. I went out the first week the program was up and running, and just to realize it was a very simple yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And if you landed on the right side of each of these eligibility criteria, then it said, you know, you're eligible for the program or to complete an application.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Commissioner, was there any proof about their income? Did they have to prove how much they were making? Any checkpoints on all these 4 questions?
Chairman Draheim and Senator Rosen. So this was let's think of this as the pre-screener, and then that got you through to the application. With the application, you had to do more documentation of proof. So this was just the pre-screener, so you could very quickly find out whether or not you were eligible. So you didn't have to do a whole application only to find out that you didn't meet one of these.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I see your website hasn't been updated since the end of November. Is there a reason for that?
Chairman Draheim, the deluge of applications that happened the first week of December. I mean, this program has been a fast-moving train the whole time that we've had it. And so just trying to make sure that when we got data on the web that it had been vetted. We had some just some duplication errors that needed to get worked out of the system and other things like that. So we have working data that's more accurate than that. But once we have it vetted, we'll update the website. And once we have things finished, we'll get final numbers. And I suspect in our agency's audit, this program will also be audited over time.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I think Senator Dames has his hand up.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was just curious, Ms. Ho, if you could tell me, you mentioned once or twice about when the program was put together that the wishes of the legislature or opinions, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I don't remember the exact words you said, were taken into account when this program was put together. Could you give me a short summary of what you understood the legislative body's intentions were and what their thoughts were on this process?
Thank you, Chairman Draheim and Senator Dahms. We did negotiate right up to the end of the regular session. There was language going back and forth between the House and the Senate on what this program would look like if it had been agreed to between the two bodies. But it was just something that we couldn't get over the line when the regular session adjourned. And so we certainly had heard the priorities of both the House and the Senate and had seen bill language from each body. And so certainly it made it clear to me the types of questions that you would have around direct payments to the entity to whom the back payment is due. The Senate wanted to make sure that it was up to 300%, I believe, of federal poverty. The House was interested in, if we do that, let's make sure we're doing some targeting. So really just trying to we got really close on this negotiation in May. So, man, I think I had a good sense from the final, it's even hard to call it conference committee. It was just so weird. But the final conference calls and the language that had gone back and forth, what this might have looked like if we had been able to complete the work together. And so I'm sure that Joel or my staff can pull up what some of the almost there bill language looked like in May. If you'd like us to share that with you.
Well, I was just curious, just how this process, how you came up with it. And do you feel that I know there was a lot of discussion about home ownership and renters and things like that. And so did you take into account the legislators' position on airing to more tenants or more homeowners, or how did you set up what percent or how much is going to tenants versus homeowners? And do you feel that was in the guidelines of what the legislative bodies wanted?
Chairman Draheim and Senator Doms, I mean, I have to say, honestly, in May, it was really hard to estimate how much the need was going to be through the end of the year. You know, there were various models and estimates that were put out there. I mean, but this was May. I mean, this was 2 months into the shutdown. And so, you know, to me, especially with 100 million, and, you know, we had probably one of the highest allocations per capita, maybe next to Illinois, in the country for a program like this. And then you also had local jurisdictions using their own allocation of coronavirus relief funds, standing up local programs in certain places. But speed was really the driving force because of the deadline on the money and the urgency of the need. And so what we really tried to do is to reach people who needed the assistance. And because we didn't say X percent needs to go to renters or X percent needs to go to homeowners, we didn't cap the amount of assistance any family could get. We didn't limit the number of months for which you could get assistance. We really, our primary goal was to get it up with some reasonable parameters that, you know, had some protections, just because this is, you know, public money, but also try to make it as simple to tap for folks who are hurting. And, you know, I think most of my learning is going to be in hindsight on this one, because getting it up and running so quickly was just kind of something in and of itself. I mean, what I would say is that keeping the money as flexible as possible so that we could respond to what we were seeing from different parts of the state with different administrators. We didn't make grant awards that were fixed. We told folks they were eligible for up to a certain amount. We made disbursements every 3 weeks so that we could move money around to administrators who were getting the most applications, and you know, and we've continued to do that just to try to make sure that we didn't make the program so prescriptive that we backed ourselves into a corner where we weren't able to use the full 100 million, especially when the December 30th deadline was looming. So we've aimed for nimbleness, and I think we've reached a lot of people with need. You know, I'll never know who we didn't reach. Estimates are there's a lot more people who are still out there and hurting. So, but that's.
Commissioner, if I could, I know we're going to be tight on time here. We got a lot of people here, but you know, I was in the loop a little bit on the negotiating back and forth, and I don't remember who didn't want the federally backed mortgages excluded from assistance. So was that something that came out of your agency, or where did that come from?
You know, Chairman Draheim, I will have to go back and look at that too. May feels like a long time ago to me right now. But our main goal was to make sure that we reached people who didn't have other forms of relief. And so that may have been our decision. I will just have to go back and take a look.
Okay. And then the last question I have is the timeline. I know there was a handful of counties that did their own program, and they seem to be up and running pretty fast. You know, what was the main difference between what you guys did on the state level versus these counties that were able to get up and running relatively fast?
Chairman Draheim, and I say this with the utmost respect, we tried to do it together with the legislature. And so we worked on design together through May, whereas the counties and cities that went with their own direct appropriation of CRF money could just do it as the second they got their allocation. They just had to go perhaps through their city council or their county board. So our attempt to do it together is what meant that the governor didn't act to do it on his own until till July, I think, after the dust had settled.
So you had talked about before about the admin cost cap at 15%. Did the counties have that same dollar amount on their money?
Chairman Draheim, I don't know. We were so busy getting the state program up, and because every jurisdiction who had federal coronavirus relief fund money had the autonomy to make their own decisions about design, and because they had gotten out in some cases ahead of us, we did not spend another month trying to coordinate on having shared design elements. So I think you'd have to speak to the counties and cities that did this on their own. We did not do a direct to landlord program. I know that Hennepin County and Dakota County, at least minimally, did a direct to landlord program. So I think there's different things that we are trying to regroup now so that we can kind of all learn from the fact that we ran separate experiments.
Sure, and that was kind of my lead in. Thank you for teeing that off for me, Commissioner. But I've heard from literally probably hundreds of landlords that are in a tough spot, and it seems like this program was really geared towards renters more than it was the people paying the mortgages. And when you look at the dollar amount that was spent on unemployment, we're going to be hitting probably $10 billion throughout the calendar year last year, or darn close to it, I think, when all the numbers settle down. So there was a lot of relief for the renters, but I feel the landlords have been kind of left out in the cold a little bit. Moving forward with the new pot of money coming, what changes do you see your agency doing different between the last program and then what'll be the new program?
Chairman Draheim, I think Cecil Smith is with you today, so I won't try to put words in the mouth of landlords, but I know that when Cecil and I talked this fall, once the checks were actually arriving, because it took a while to get things processed, those were direct checks cut to landlords. Mm-hmm. If we want to flip ahead in the interest of time, we can go to the new federal emergency rental assistance. I just have a couple slides on that, and I can go over the high points. So the stimulus that was passed at the end of December included $25 billion to the Department of Treasury for emergency rental assistance. It's estimated that $375 million of that is going to come through the state and those localities that have 200,000 people or more, which are 5 metro counties in the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. So 55% of that is available to the state and 45% is available to these jurisdictions. We believe that each of these jurisdictions is going to raise their hand and take funding to run a program in those jurisdictions. In addition, tribes across the country are eligible for $80 million. We haven't seen the distributions on the Treasury website yet, but we did quick math on the way that the Indian Housing Block Grants are set up, and we think it's probably around $22 million that Minnesota tribes would be eligible for if they do that. All entities were required to let the Treasury Department know that whether or not we were interested in getting an allocation today, actually. So again, a very, very quick federal turnaround. What's really different here is that with the coronavirus relief fund, states had a lot of flexibility, local jurisdictions had a lot of flexibility to decide what they wanted to do with that money for all the different things that we were trying to solve. In this instance, we now have Congress pretty clearly prescribing what will and will not be eligible in the program. So it's a congressionally defined program that will have some uniformity nationally. Thank you. So the eligible uses, first of all, it's emergency rental assistance. So Congress did not put funding in for homeowners. We think that's a mistake, an omission, and maybe something that the new Congress or the new administration will come back around on. But it is specifically targeted only to emergency rental assistance.
Real quick, Commissioner, I've kind of left off. I know Senator Dames had his hand up and now it took it down. Did you still have a question, Senator Dames? And then Dietzich is next.
No, the question got asked and answered. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Senator Dietzich?
Thank you. One of my questions was answered. One of them you maybe were going to answer. I agree and do hope that either Congress or we look at helping homeowners having lived through the mortgage foreclosure crisis. I know there's a lot of families that, are teetering on the edge of that. I know some of them were able to work with their banks and get some relief. So I assume that when you were going through and all the, in the previous round, when you were going through all that, you kind of prioritized who needed immediate help. And then in this round of rental assistance, at least is the counties, will the counties be able to, one of the questions I've heard is, you had a lot of tenants who maybe weren't bad tenants. They just lost their job, had, medical issues, and just were trying to literally get through day by day. And maybe the landlords were trying to reach out, but they were just so overwhelmed. And I don't believe the landlords were able to go directly to get some of that relief. I think Hennepin County may have did one of their programs and used some money where the landlords, could go on behalf of the tenants and get that money. Is that something that those counties could still do or we're looking at? And then again, about how are we prioritizing those who have no place else to go, so they don't have a next pot of money to go to.
Chairman Dreyheim,
Sure.
Senator Dietzich, thank you. So let me just finish this slide because I think the next slides get to your question. So again, the Congress has defined the eligible use, but it's basically housing and utility related expenses for renters. It does have both a look back and a look forward. So we can pay for past due rent, but if somebody is still unemployed, you can actually pay them prospectively for, I think, up to 3 months. And people are eligible, I think, for a total of up to 15 months of assistance. The Congress has put a 10% cap on admin funds, which is hard for doing something this big, this fast, that's time limited. And then if we flip to the next slide, eligible recipients, they're tying it to area median income, 80% with targeting at 50% of area median income and people who have been unemployed for 90 days. And then Senator Dietzich, to your point, the Congress has set this up so that landlords and owners can apply on behalf of tenants, but the tenants have to sign off. The tenants can apply on their own behalf. But then there's also a provision, something that we saw with our COVID-19 housing assistance program. In some instances, we had tenants who applied, but landlords who didn't provide the backup paperwork. In the new federal program, in those instances, it's going to allow a check to go directly to the tenant if the landlord doesn't participate. But it means that it can be initiated on either side, which I think is going to be good. I think some of the batch payments that larger landlords can offer is going to help with some of the efficiency of the program and solve for the concerns that you're all expressing here. But I also know that for smaller landlords, smaller greater min landlords, it's just not a portfolio of 4,000 units or 1,000 units. They're much smaller portfolios in some instances. So figuring out how to work with smaller landlords and whether that's from the tenant side or the landlord side is another thing that's going to be really important. Once again, the Congress brings this with deadlines that make me wonder who in Congress has ever stood up a really large program and run it before. We have to have 65% of all of the money obligated by September 30th. or they have the ability to claw it back and reallocate it to people who have had 65% of all the money obligated. And then if we do keep our money and demonstrate that we're getting it out the door, there's a possibility that we could run the program for 90 days after December 31st. Whether this Congress and the next president keep these timelines, this is just, I mean, what we learned last year about just how hard it is to do something this big, this fast. I mean, that was $100 million for 4 months. This is $375 million for 12 months. The deadlines are just really hard. I mean, I get if a state just sits there and doesn't do anything, that money should get put back someplace else. But September 30th is just going to be a really hard date to accomplish. I think the win-win for Minnesota is if every jurisdiction that gets it is able to hit the 65% mark by September 30th. I certainly hope that we don't end up in a situation where we're competing with each other and trying to be the first dollar spent, and then that jeopardizes kind of net total funds available to the state. So we're trying to organize some cooperative spirit around this with the other jurisdictions.
Commissioner, thank you. If it's all right with you, I would really like to get the 3 other testifiers in, and then come back to you instead of taking more questions from the members, because I know they've been waiting patiently, and I'd like to get them in before we're done here. So if that's okay with you, Commissioner?
Yes, Chairman and members of the committee, it just was great to be with you for the first time. I'm looking forward to working together this session and doing great things for housing. So happy to listen to the others and come back in if you call me back up.
Yeah, I think they might have some questions. So I appreciate it, and I look forward to working with you and the rest of your team. So I think first up is the Executive Director from Three Rivers Community Action, Ms. Larson.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thanks for having me. And I just want to say thanks for setting up a separate housing committee. It's really an important issue, something I care a lot about and have been working on for a long time. And so it's really nice to see you all spending time dedicated to housing specifically. Three Rivers Community Action is a nonprofit organization that works on a wide array of programming meant to help respond to the conditions and causes of poverty. And about half of the work that we do is related to housing. So we do everything from homeless prevention programs all the way through homeownership programs. So I'm really glad you showed that continuum of housing at the beginning, because you can't address one piece of the housing continuum without affecting something else down the line. And we know that as advocates. And so I was really happy to see that at the beginning of the meeting. I'm here today representing the Homes for All Coalition, who are advocates and have been working on housing stability for renters and homeowners during the pandemic and before and after the pandemic. And the Homes for All Coalition folks asked me to come and give a local perspective on what we're seeing related to housing during the pandemic. And we've also been a provider of the Housing Assistance Program, so the CHAP program. We administered the program in 4 counties in southeast Minnesota. We're in Rice, Goodhue, Wabasha, and Olmsted counties. And I thought today that what I might like to do is just give you a little snapshot of what we've seen in our 4 counties. So I know the numbers are coming from the state, but we've been kind of tracking what's been happening at our agency since we launched the program with our partners at the state last summer. And in our 4-county area, we've processed 1,400 applications and distributed about $2.1 million in assistance. Of that assistance, about 68% went to pay for rent, 20% paid for utilities to both homeowners and renters. 7% paid mortgage payments, and 5% paid manufactured home payments or lot rent payments. We tallied up how many landlords we worked with in the last several months, and it was over 400 landlords that we worked with. The program demographics, we've been tracking who we've been serving with the program. The majority of our applicants or the people that we helped were under 100% of the federal poverty level. About 52% were under 100% of poverty. Another 30% were between that 100 and 200% range. And the remaining 18% of our clients were between 2 and 300% of poverty. So the program definitely does serve the lowest income folks in our area. Our applicants were 68% female, and only 21% of the applicants in our area did not have children in the household. So the program definitely was set up and is working to help families with children. We served a lot of diverse households as well. 22% of our applicants were Black and 19 were Latinx. So we did meet the need of underserved populations in our area as well. Now that the CHAP program has ended, the need for assistance definitely hasn't ended. We are getting tons of calls every day. Our phone lines are busy. We have 4 receptionists across our 4 counties answering phones, and they don't get to every phone call live. So we're responding to lots of voicemails. And it's mostly because people are worried about being evicted or being foreclosed on and how they're going to pay their bills. We're also speaking to landlords every day who are worried about their tenants, trying to find assistance for their tenants, but they're also worried about their own businesses and their ability to pay their own mortgages and to keep their businesses operating. Just from a perspective of a provider of the housing assistance program, I think as the commissioner said, the program rolled out quickly and the demand was really overwhelming. We at Three Rivers needed to hire additional staff to meet the demand. We added 6 positions to help process applications on top of our existing staff. So I will point out it was a job creator. Some of the folks that we hired had been laid off from their other businesses. One of our processors, her family owns a restaurant that wasn't able to keep her employed. And so she was very thrilled to be able to have income coming in for her family and to be able to help other families, across the state. So it took us a little while to get up and running, but now that we know what we're doing and how it was up and running, we're really proud of the work that we've done. And I want to say that we, and I think probably the other 51 administrators across the state, are ready and willing to continue operating programs because we know that the need hasn't ended. So I just want to say that as new programs roll out, I think we know there's a need for rental assistance. And I would want to just echo the previous statements about flexibility. We know that needs are different across the state. Needs in my area are going to be different than needs in other parts of the state. So flexibility is key. I really like that we might be able to help people with forward payments, not just looking back. We spend a lot of time coaching people to make sure that they're paying their housing bills so that they don't lose their housing. And the previous program, if they didn't have a past due, we couldn't help them pay their rent. So it'd be really nice to be able to help people pay forward, not just back. We'd also love to see a way for landlords to be able to apply on behalf of their tenants who may not be applying themselves. And we really want to see some continued help for homeowners who are really not part of the new federal funding that's coming down the line.
So that statement about being able to apply for their tenants, I've heard that quite a bit from landlords that have called me. I think the only hiccup would have been the income, not knowing their income with the current program. Is there any solution for that you have on how to do that? I think that is, I've had so many calls from landlords just frustrated because the tenants won't answer the questions for them to fill out the paperwork to send in. So what's the workaround on that?
Right. Mr. Chair, thank you. I think that's definitely the issue. I think we have to find a way to get tenants to come either co-sign the application or somehow work with them. Some landlords might have income information on their tenants, but most probably don't, and it's not going to be current. And so that's really going to be the challenge to try to figure that out. I personally don't have a breakthrough idea or an aha on that. But it seems a shame to not be able to work with a landlord if we can't figure that out. So I don't know what the right answer is, but I think we should keep thinking about it.
So if you were king for the day or queen for the day, what changes would you make with the program?
So like I mentioned, I really think we should be paying forward, not back. So somebody that came into us in August, they came back to us 2 or 3 times. We're working with that same household, processing it multiple times. It'd be really nice to work with that household once and to say, okay, so, we've documented your loss of income. We'll help you pay what the rent you didn't pay, and then we can pay your rent 3 months forward, and then we can move on and help somebody else who needs assistance. And so we don't have to keep going back and spending a lot of administrative time working with the same household over and over again. So I would really like to see that. Homeownership, we only 7% of our funds went to pay mortgages, but I know a lot more homeowners contacted us than that. A lot of our utility payments went to homeowners. So we did a lot of work helping households get connected to their forbearance rights and some advocacy on that. So I think there's probably a role, and if Julie Gugan gets a turn today, she'll probably talk a lot about what we can do to be helping homeowners down the line get connected to their benefits or to their rights, but also get some assistance for them, especially with a new program that doesn't name them as eligible.
So 7% is all that went to landlords.
7% went to mortgage payments. 68% of our funds went to landlords, and then 20% paid utilities. And 5% went to manufactured home communities, either for their unit or their lot rents.
Okay. Do you have any closing comments before we move on? We're on a time schedule here.
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for testifying. Next up, we have Mr. Smith with Minnesota Multi-Housing Association.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee. It's great to be with you. Great to be with the Housing Committee in the Senate. My name is Cecil Smith. I am President and CEO of the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association, known as MHA. MHA is made up of over 1,700 members and represents over 400,000 housing units in Minnesota. I'm also an owner and operator, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify today, both about the CHAP program and provide you an up-to-the-minute rental market update, because we just completed our survey for January 6th. So to start, the Minnesota rental market has stayed ahead of national averages in terms of rent paid on the 6th, and the long-term trends in Minnesota's market remain stable over the past 10 months. That said, some markets and local conditions have created pockets facing greater stress than others. Anecdotally, non-payment burdens do fall heaviest on the smaller portfolios, especially those with 4 units or less. But when we weight this across the entire market, the rent paid on the 6th was 88%. And by month's end, 95% of rent has been collected. The vacancy continues to be an issue, and we especially are seeing that in Class A properties. It has risen significantly since the start of the pandemic, following national trends. We're also seeing some large vacancy challenges in some Minneapolis submarkets, but we believe those seem to be public safety related vacancy. Now, we don't track rental rates, but we are seeing other data that is now showing rent declines in some submarkets. The monthly data that MHA has gathered since the start of the pandemic is now showing the first observable signs of CHAP funding reaching residents struggling to pay. So while Class A and B delinquent balances have continued to grow modestly, Class C properties saw delinquent balances decline for the first time since the start of the pandemic. And this is very encouraging information, even as the Speaker of the House and the Governor have recently described the need to prepare an off-ramp from the eviction and lease termination moratorium. Historically, 94% of evictions are due to non-payment of rent. And with the $375 million in forthcoming rental assistance, there is no evidence of an upcoming eviction wave. And so an off-ramp is indeed reasonable and timely. Now, in order to have a successful eviction off-ramp, it's important to consider what we learned from the CHAP program and other rental housing programs implemented locally. At the state level, the CHAP program faced issues. I heard from managers and operators describe the challenges their residents had to deal with when looking to receive rental assistance. I myself had a resident who struggled mightily both with language and processing. She lacked internet access and needed a translator. It took us helping her directly on several occasions to help her succeed since she had given up on her own. This was not isolated. We heard of numerous challenges and large property managers even hiring full-time staff to assist their residents navigate the program. Additionally, payments were significantly delayed in the state program, taking many, many weeks to receive. And we've heard reasons why. There's a very overwhelming volume. But needless to say, it was a nervous time for landlords waiting for those payments. Understanding the federal law understanding the new federal law may provide some hurdles. MHA and its members were impressed with the functionality and the efficiency of the Hennepin, Dakota, and Scott County direct landlord rental assistance programs. Within weeks of the application deadline, the information had been processed and checks from the 3 counties were sent to properties. These county-based programs stood in contrast to the state's program on efficiency, and it's something to consider when looking at the administrative costs restrictions in the latest federal rental support. While MHA strongly encourages a portfolio rental assistance program, we recognize that the administration and the burden of requesting on behalf of residents is significant for some small operators. And for that reason, we would also recommend a concurrent slim-down program which would offer a resident an opportunity to apply for assistance themselves if their manager is not able or willing to do so. With that, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, that completes my testimony. Thank you for the opportunity. I and my staff are happy to be a resource to you and the committee whenever we can throughout this session and beyond. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and thanks for testifying. And we are short of time. Otherwise, we will have you back soon, I hope, because the eviction moratorium is something we have to work through here sooner than later. So thank you. Next up, we have the president of Minnesota Homeownership Center.
Chair Draheim and members of the committee, my name is Julie Guggen. I'm the president of the nonprofit Minnesota Home Ownership Center. We are an intermediary sitting at the center of a variety of homeownership programs. Primary business line of ours is homeownership education, financial counseling, and foreclosure prevention. We work with 40 nonprofit and community-based organizations around the state on this work, including Three Rivers, which Jenny Larson mentioned. Since 2008, the center has worked with our partners to help more than 38,000 households successfully avoid foreclosure and mortgage crisis and maintain the stability that homeownership offers. Sadly, with a return to normal life still a ways off, and with temporary mortgage relief programs set to expire in second quarter 2021, we anticipate incredibly increased demand for our mortgage default prevention and foreclosure prevention work over the next few months and throughout 2021 and beyond. And without additional mortgage relief, we fear many thousands of existing homeowners will be forced to sell against their wishes in order to avoid foreclosure. We are determined to prevent a repeat of the 2008 foreclosure crisis, during which so many lower and middle income individuals and families lost so much. Back then, our network organizations were frontline responders. We worked quickly to deploy resources and raise funds to support foreclosure prevention, advocacy, housing development, and community healing. But even with these and other loss mitigation efforts, Minnesota experienced a staggering 135,000 foreclosures in the years from 2008 to 2014. Households of color were disproportionately impacted and still have not yet fully recovered. Those who face foreclosure or are forced to sell will again be the very people we've worked so hard to help. This backsliding against the homeownership gap between white households and households of color can't be allowed to happen again. As we work with our partners, stakeholders, and fellow members of our Homeownership Minnesota Advocacy Coalition, we are considering many factors to address the impacts of COVID on homeownership, including additional support for foreclosure prevention services. Also at the top of our list is the recognition that we need to continue housing assistance. We need this assistance to include homeowners as well as renters, and we need the relief to be accessible and understood by consumers. Unfortunately, as you learned from the commissioner, the latest round of stimulus funding approved at the federal level includes no support for homeowners. We were an administrator of CHAP in partnership with Habitat for Humanity of Minnesota, Habitat affiliates, and many of our network members. We focus solely on serving homeowners. We were grateful to be able to help those who received assistance and thank Minnesota Housing for their support during this program. We, like many, are still tallying our final numbers, but we estimate that we served over 1,500 homeowners with just over $1.5 million deployed. CHAP was implemented rapidly and included homeowners facing mortgage crisis. However, as the commissioner shared, program requirements limited eligibility for a large percentage of mortgages. Any mortgage with government backing, including FHA, Fannie and Freddie, VA, and USDA, were ineligible for the program. Unfortunately, those are the mortgages that tend to serve the lowest income homeowners. Also, any mortgage that was currently in forbearance was ineligible unless the forbearance ended during the program. As we work together to identify and define future direct assistance programs, we would advocate a change in eligibility requirements or a level of concession given to those who have had forbearance, given what homeowners will face post-forbearance. We did run into some confusion on the part of homeowners at the program onset. It was not clear on the pre-screening or program materials which homeowners were eligible. Minnesota Housing did work to alleviate some of that concern at several weeks into the program, which was helpful, but still we need to be mindful of that in the future. We look forward to taking what we learned from CHAP to inform future assistance for homeowners. We are in preliminary conversations with Minnesota Housing staff and look forward to this collaboration as we work to secure support for homeowners in Minnesota. I would also be happy to serve as a resource for any of you as you continue your work in this arena. Thank you for including homeowners as well as renters in your deliberations around additional COVID housing assistance, and thank you for your attention. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, and thank you for testifying. So the number of people in trouble from COVID, do you have any handle on how many households you think are 90 days or more behind on their payments?
So what I do know is that industry-wide, nationwide, this data is very hard to get. And we, again, are looking for resources that can provide very localized state data. It just hasn't really been forthcoming. We do know that the percentage of people who are in forbearance spiked in late summer. So the number of people seeking forbearance spiked. We do know that those first people who received forbearance under the CARES Act, so under the federal guidelines, started getting that support or started getting those concessions in about April and May of next year. So their 1 year of eligibility for forbearance will start expiring in April and May of this year. And that is the milestone that we are focusing on as we plan our expansion efforts and as we gear up again to face those homeowners who will be leaving forbearance and who will be faced with confusion as they work with their lenders, who will be faced with mixed messages based on who they talk to at their lender. And, we're really needing to turn our focus to the direct assistance they need and whatever empowerment we can provide them as they work with their lenders on what their options are.
So what if I could ask, I know we only have a couple more minutes here, but what percentage of the calls you guys received were the people that were under the government programs, the USDA program or the other quote unquote government programs that, us in real estate see mainly the bottom third of our transactions are people that use that are little tougher budgets, little tighter budgets. And you would think that they'd be the ones that would need the help the most. And from what I'm hearing, they weren't included in any of these programs. Is that what you're hearing too?
Chair Durham, if what you're referring to is the CHAP eligibility requirements, that's correct. Anybody with a federally backed, that's my term, federally backed mortgage was not eligible for this program. And what our messaging to them was, and we did turn down folks in the program, but our messaging to them was you should seek assistance from your lender. You may be eligible for forbearance or other measures to help with your mortgage.
So I'll ask you the same question I asked Ms. Larson. If you were king or queen for the day, and you were looking at doing a new program, and what changes would you recommend be made to those programs to help out, as many people as possible? And the equity gap is something that we should be embarrassed here in Minnesota how bad we are. And I think of what I'm hearing and what I've seen and what the phone calls I've received, we've kind of went backwards a little bit. What would you recommend to change?
So first and foremost, certainly there are administrators, including Jenny, myself, many of the nonprofits that we work with, who've got a lot of experience working with homeowners, working with renters, working with folks on the ground. We'd like to be part of the conversations early in terms of program design. I think that would be really beneficial to everybody involved. And I think we have a lot to offer the design process. Eligibility, we would advocate that regardless of availability of forbearance, that people be allowed to participate in the program. As Jenny shared with what renters were experiencing, similar to homeowners, we paid back payments, which is important, but what about the next payment that's due? So, the funds were really important, but they didn't necessarily create a sustainable situation for that particular homeowner. So we'd like the ability to combine foreclosure or mortgage default counseling with the funding in a way that helps create a sustainable plan for that homeowner, and that would imply allowing future payments or some version of direct assistance that sets the homeowner up for success in the future. I'd like a different way of coordinating with utilities. We reached out to the big utility companies up front. And as Jenny pointed out, we had to work with those same utility companies for every homeowner. And is there a way to say, okay, Excel, here's what it's going to look like for us serving your customers who are behind in perhaps a more efficient way? And I really appreciate what Commissioner Ho had to say about the centralized approach, the Housing Link 211. That idea of centralization was really smart. And I think there's a way to take that one step further as we think about who might administer funds in the community. I'll stop there.
Okay, I appreciate that. I have one more quick question, and then Senator Dames has his hand up. So what percentage do you think was excluded from the chat of mortgages? What percentage do you think was excluded from being able to participate in this program?
Yep. So it's impossible to know who self-selected out. You know, we don't know that, because if they read program requirements and said, well, you're not eligible because you have FHA, they maybe didn't apply. Of the people who applied, our very preliminary estimates are that 30% of the people who applied for home ownership assistance were denied because of their mortgage type.
Okay, thank you very much. Senator Dames, did you have a question, or did it get answered?
Got answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for raising your hand.
Can I substitute a question for his?
Of course, go ahead.
It's going to be a brief one. So I apologize if this is reiterating some information that's already been shared. I'm not even sure who the question should be directed to, but I'm playing catch up as a newbie to this process. I'm curious what rationale or what was the reasoning behind the exclusion of government insured loans from the program?
Chairman, I think that's mine.
Okay, Commissioner, do you have time to answer that?
I do. Let me just
thank you.
Put my mic on so you get better quality.
We hear you pretty good. Sorry to catch you off guard.
I mean, I guess what I can say is that last July, we had no idea how long this was going to go for. We had no idea how fast the money was going to go. And if we had made the decision to make it available for people who had other options, it wouldn't have lasted through the end of the year. And it wouldn't have therefore helped some folks who didn't have any other option. If there were a pool of funding that we knew was going to continue to be available, and we weren't operating with the December 30th constraints, would we have thought about it differently? As we look at the new federal money going forward and the enormity of it, might we consider it differently? But all I can say is that there were so many unknowns in July, and we had to make some calls. But if people had other options available, I mean, and Julie, Gugan knows this well, and I so admire and appreciate her work in partnership. We would have had a huge amount of money set aside just for counseling to help people kind of understand their options. There's a lot in 2020. If I could slow it down, I would do differently, but I couldn't slow it down. And I think that given the options that we had available and all the uncertainties, I think, it was a decision that maybe others would have made differently. But I think the fact that the program was fully subscribed the way that it was run means that it helped people who didn't have any other tool available to them. And that's really where my thinking and my team's thinking was.
Yeah, hindsight is always 2020, right? The things we wish we knew back then that we know now. And please don't take my question to be critical of all the great work that you and your team has done to try to do the best that you can. But as a new person coming in and hearing some of this for the first time, I think part of the collective conversation we've heard, and it seems like you might understand this, Commissioner, is that as the program moves forward and we look at other ways in which we can help people, looking at federally insured mortgages and what sort of relief might be a possibility for those folks might also be beneficial as well. To the chair's point, a lot of folks that are are buying homes, and I do this every day. They're using FHA, VA, USDA home loans to close on that property. And I'm not as familiar with what the federal government is doing in terms of their mortgages to help people that find themselves dealing with hardships as it relates to COVID. But the person who has the mortgage is the one that's insured and protected, not necessarily the person paying the mortgage. Granted, there might be programs out there that do exist to help them. So I appreciate your willingness to hear us, to listen to our feedback, and allow it to maybe formulate some of the game plan that you use moving forward. So thank you.
Chairman Draheim and Senator Duckworth, I'll just add to it. I do think now that we have seen the new federal bill, I think there's a lot of collective knowledge about what it doesn't do for homeowners and what homeowners are going to need. We also don't know what the next administration is going to do around extensions of forbearance or other stimulus packages. So we're kind of always guessing against Congress in terms of what we do here at the state. So, which is, not easy to do. They have kept us up in the air quite a few times this year. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Well, Commissioner, I appreciate it. And I could go on for hours talking about this, but I think we'll have another opportunity to bring this back. I think we've helped a lot of people, but we got a lot more to go. With these programs. I want to thank all the members for their questions and their input, but we are over a little bit of time, so I do want to end it. Any last comments, questions for anybody, any of the presenters or commissioner or senators? Do you have anything to add real quick? Okay. Well, thanks again, everyone. And with that, we are done. We will have another meeting on the Thursday, I believe. So thank you.
Thank you all.